All right, it's time. It's time to get into this. So the other day, I decided to sit down. I had been on Twitter, on the internet, reading a lot about, this movie that had been made on Netflix, and it's called Cuties. And look, okay, so the reason I sat down and watched this movie, because this really is not made for me. If I'm being honest, this movie is not made for me. I mean, it's pretty obvious. So you're asking, TJ, why did you sit down and waste an hour and 40 minutes of your life watching this? And I'll tell you why. I like controversial movies. I am all for movies that push the envelope. I like movies that, that are not afraid to do ballsy stuff, or not afraid to, push the social norms, explore, controversial topics and things like that. So I was like, okay, this movie is getting a lot. It's very polarized, and I like movies that have polarized reviews, like where the audience review on Rotten Tomatoes is like very low or high, and then the critic score is the opposite. I like those. I like watching those kind of movies. I think, because those are the ones that you really get your own opinion on, is the ones where you're, the critics and the people aren't, on the same page. That's where you can get, the best discussions and the best, you can get the most from those kind of movies, because, it can be interpreted in different ways, I guess. But, like I said, I like these kind of movies. I like edgy movies. I like movies that, show graphics material if it's necessary and services the story and is done in a way with reverence and respect. So going into this movie, I kind of, I had heard some things about it, heard it was kind of sketchy, but I was like, it's on Netflix, I'll check it out. Holy shit. I have never been so disgusted with a movie in my entire life. And look, I've seen some awful films in my day. I'll tell you. I'll be the first one to tell you. I've sat down in the theater and I've seen some movies and I've walked out of movies multiple times. And I've turned off movies and I've just been like, oh my goodness. But this hit me on a different level. If I'm being completely honest, this hit me on a different level. I was incredibly uncomfortable watching this movie. From beginning to end, I was uncomfortable. And I think about 5 minutes into this movie, you get a shot of this young girl doing laundry, and it is pretty sexualized in its, direction. And from there, I kind of was afraid of where this movie was going to go. And I couldn't even imagine how, bizarre and uncomfortable this movie gets, especially for, normal people. That's what I'm going to say. But okay, let me break this movie down for you. I'm the reason I'm talking about this is because I don't want people to watch this movie. I wasted my life watching this, so you don't have to, because this is something that should have never been made. And I'm being completely honest. And there's only a few reasons for why this could have been made, and none of them are good. None of them are good. None of the reasons I can think of in my head for why something like this could have been made, none of it is good. And just watching this, here's my consensus on this film. This movie is trying to normalize, the sexualization and exploitation of children and of minors. That's what this is. I mean, that's kind of what I took away from this movie. That's what it's trying to normalize that stuff. It's trying to normalize young girls, children, sexualizing themselves. That's what this is trying to be. This is an 11-year-old child exploring her sexuality in a way that kids that age rarely do. I mean, not to this extent. I mean, it's one thing to, have a boyfriend or a girlfriend in grade school, but, you're not really, doing anything, serious. You're just kind of like together because you're young, Like I had a girlfriend in second grade or fifth grade, and it's not a real girlfriend, It's just kind of like we're kids. We like each other kind of thing. But it was never like really sexual, if you know what I mean. Like, because at that age you don't really get those hormones until you're older, and that's what made this movie so bizarre to me. Is it doesn't really work for what it's even trying to be, which is like a coming of age, sexual orientation exploration. Wow, those big words right there. But that's like the best way I can describe it. That's what this movie's trying to be. But really, I think this movie is just trying to appease pedophiles. I mean, I'm serious. Some of the shots in this movie, I couldn't believe that they thought this was a good idea. They had to be pedophiles. That's the only way I can describe them actually thinking this was a good idea. I honestly could. Now, I guarantee you that this movie was written, the original script of this movie, I guarantee you the characters are like 18. They're in high school or in their 20s. Because these characters, these girls do a lot of things that would be, this movie would be normal if these girls were of age. If they were 18 or older, if they were like in college, if they wrote this movie for them to be in college or, 18 to 20 or whatever, that this would make more sense. This movie would work more. But the fact that these girls are 11, they're 11 years old. They're not 18. They're not 17, not 16. They don't even have their driver's license. Not 15, not 14, not even 13, not a teenagers. They are not even 12. They are 11-year-old girls. And they're doing, and some of the shit that they do in this movie, and they show in this movie, I couldn't believe it. I've never been so befuzzled and disgusted by a film. Honestly, rarely do I ever say this, that they should ever take down a movie. Like, I'm never that guy that's like, I'm not a censorship kind of guy. I'm not a guy that's like, take down this, take down that, cancel this, cancel that. I'm not that kind of guy. I'm very, very laxed on that kind of stuff. But when it comes to children, and this kind of thing, this is not something we want to promote, okay? Like, it's one thing for Cardi B, and that's like kind of like what they're trying to promote, like, is that kind of lifestyle, the stripper, prostitute, I guess, kind of lifestyle, the over-sexualized dancing, and that's how, which, it's fine for Cardi B. I like Cardi B's music, not as much anymore, the WAP and all that, I'm not not big into that song. I think it's kind of, weak, but I think her music's fun, and I don't take it as seriously as a lot of people try to. I understand what it is, but it works for Cardi B because she's a woman in her 30s. She has life experience. She has enough experience in her life where she can make that decision and say, hey, this is something I want to do with my life, or this is something I've been doing with my life. And that's because she's old enough to do it. And she can, she's lived enough life where she can make a decision like that. But, with this, it's just like, these are children, man. Like, I was never thinking about anything at this age. And maybe I'm a weird kid, and obviously times have changed. I'm in my 20s now. I understand. The kids these days, they got and I'm making myself seem like a boomer when I say that kind of stuff, but you know what I mean? Like, kids have way more exposure to that kind of stuff. When I was 11, I had a cell phone. It was a flip phone. I had a flip phone. I didn't have Instagram and TikTok and these applications that these kids have where they see these, women sexualizing themselves. And, the thing that's different is and this movie kind of tries to explore that. This girl basically, she wants to be a stripper, essentially. And she's 11 years old. She's in this super, religious Islamic family. And she, her parents and her grandparents or whatever, her mother is like very overbearing and, wants her to, wear this, these clothing and all this stuff that she doesn't want to do and do all these services. And her father is getting remarried. And, it kind of explains how these, organized religions, put women at a disadvantage and all that. I see the narrative they're trying to push. And I thought that stuff was was actually like kind of well done. I think that some of the stuff in this movie, some of this character stuff is actually at times some of the best parts of this movie. But don't get me wrong, this is a terrible movie. I'm not saying, but I'm just saying some of this stuff is watchable. If I'm being objective here, because I'm not going to sit here and say this is the worst movie ever. It's watchable. Okay? It's watchable. It's just my jaw hit the floor. I couldn't believe it. And it's watchable from a story sense, but not from a, cinematography, story, anything like that sense. It's watchable just because it's, it's not a long movie. But, oh my God, it feels like it. And this thing, man, there's some scenes in this movie that just really, really rubbed me the wrong way. The first one being, there's like a scene where these girls, where they first kind of start dancing, and the main character, Ami, I think her name is, or Amy or something, I can't remember. But she's the main character of this movie, and she kind of like, is the outsider who then starts, become better than everybody else at her dance group. And she starts showing them all these moves, and then they all start twerking and falling on each other. And I'm like, dude, I was watching this, and I was like, oh my God. I was like, This is unbelievable. Like I was like, I cannot believe this is on Netflix. Like this is on Netflix. These girls are twerking and they have like close angle shots of these little girls, skinny little bodies with no curves and no. I'm like, how do like. I'll never understand it, man. I will never understand why they thought this was a good idea. Why people even think this is even attractive or sexy or any. I didn't find any of that in this film. And this film tries to be that. It tries to be provocative and sexy, and it just comes off as really gross and really uncomfortable. And I really was close to turning this one off. The final dance sequence, I almost turned it off. I was like, I've had enough of this shit, bro. I was looking at my phone for a lot of the movie. It lost me about halfway through. I think the first act is definitely the strongest part, and that's why I kind of said it was watchable, because the first act is definitely the most watchable. They do try to make you care about these characters, but once they start showing you all the the little girl bodies and the all of the provocative camera angles and all that, you're just like, oh my god, this is exploitive and really just not something we want to promote. It's not something we want to promote, people. This is, it's one thing to do this with women that are of age and that can make this kind of decision in their life. And if this is something that you want to do, go ahead, be a stripper. Like I have no problem with strippers. I have no problem with exotic dancing and anything like that. But I do have problems with children doing this stuff, and I do have problems with companies like Netflix promoting this behavior for children. Like this is not an avenue we want to go down, because nothing good can come from this. Pedophilia and all of that. We see it starting to creep up in the news and whatnot, and it's just, this is a horribly timed film. This is a horribly executed experiment. I don't know what they were thinking. And, I mean, I don't have much else to say other than that. I'm really disappointed with Netflix for this, man. I'm disappointed with everybody on the board for Netflix. I'm disappointed with the financiers for this film. I'm disappointed with the director and writer. I don't remember her name, but I'm very disappointed. This is something that should never be done again. This is a mistake that we should just fix and never do again, because holy cow, this movie was terrible. Don't watch this movie. Don't support this movie. And a lot of people are trying to boycott Netflix for this. Do what you want to do. I'm not a huge boycotter. I'm not one of those people personally, but at the same time, I will never watch this film again. I will not even go near. I won't even scroll over this film if I'm on Netflix. If I'm going through titles on Netflix, I'm going to go down a row and then go over and up before I land on Cuties again. I'm never watching this film again. I implore you, do not support this film. Do not support this film. It is exploitive. It is gross. It is, I condemn this film. I couldn't make that more clear. And trust me, I'm not a canceller. I'm not one of these people. So it takes a lot for me to really want a film to be taken off. But I think Netflix needs to get rid of this, man. This is bad. And I don't know if this is true, but I heard they auditioned 650 girls for these roles. 650 11-year-old girls. I mean, if that's true, I mean, I don't even want to know what those auditions were like, but it was probably something very sinister, if I had to imagine, from, what we've seen in the past. But that's all I'm going to say about that. If I had to grade this movie, I'd probably give it a 0.2. I'd probably go 0.2 out of 5. And the reason I'm going to give it 0.2 is because there is some decent shots in this movie, okay? And there is some, I think the dilemma with her religion and her and this lifestyle is something that was probably the most interesting part of this movie, and they barely touch on it. But that's what I thought was kind of an interesting idea that they rarely dove into. They kind of dove into it, like I said, in the first act, but then they kind of drop it away for awkward dance sequences and then the horrendous laser tag scene that was so just unbelievably disgusting and kind of promotes pedophilia in its own way. I don't watch this movie, man. Don't watch this movie. This is a movie for pedophiles, and any normal person that isn't a sicko and doesn't deserve to be in jail will probably hate this movie, like myself. Gave it a 0.2 out of 5. That's a very low grade. for a reason. This film is disgusting, and I condemn it. And don't watch Cuties. Do not support that movie. If you see it on Netflix, scroll over, find something else to satisfy your time. Netflix does have some good films. And Netflix, I swear, I will boycott you if you make another horrendous film like this again. I'm serious. I will boycott. This is one of two strikes. I'm not baseball. I do two strikes. One of two strikes. And if they make another horrible film like this again, I'm out. I'm canceling my membership. I can't watch little children twerking on television any longer. I will not stand for this. I condemn it. It's disgusting.